one.
Are you gonna give me orders?
uThermal and Clem are finally ready to go here. Thank you so much for sponsoring that. And we are getting into TVT land. We had ZVZ land, which is commonly known as Europe. But now it's all about the TVTs because Clem has a lot to prove. So does uThermal in some ways, though. I mean, it is like the guy who was supposed to be the Terran guy of Europe for many years up against the new Terran guy of Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I'm a bit biased when it comes to uThermal because I'm very good friends with him, but I always feel as though uThermal is I feel like uThermal is always at the top, right? But not in tournaments. Like, he feels very good, like, and maybe not in tournaments, but not in like offline larger events. Because it feels like he plays a lot of quirky styles, and that can pick him up a lot of wins. But there's something about maybe his mindset, or something about maybe the way he just approaches longer series and offline events that just doesn't work as well for him. Because I feel like outside of his one IEM victory, his results there in offline events never really reflect just how good and consistently good he's been on the ladder, where he is consistently at the top of the European ladder. He is consistently taking series off Clem in these tournaments, and Clem is the player we're all hyped about. He can put up fight against Reno all the time. So yeah, for me, uThermal is one of these players who really never hit his stride, and now he's got to prove himself here against his TeamLiquid Terran bro, who is definitely taking the hot spot in terms of European Terran topics lately.
Yeah, everyone's talking about this guy, but we'll see how the actual TVT determines who is best. In the top right, for game number one, it is TeamLiquid's uThermal.
Everyone's talking about him, apart from Cyril. You know, Cyril says he doesn't talk about many people, so why should he talk about Clem? As he is the red Terran in the bottom left-hand side. There's a fun little snippet from Cyril's stream the other day when he played Clem on the ladder. It was just some good old Cyril humor.
Yeah, he'd be a very funny guy. But we have Clem going for the quick, at least, lead in this game. Sitting out SCVs, going for the 2 racks, nowhere close to his opponent, so very unscoutable indeed. uThermal is also doing a 2 racks, just not proxied is the big difference. But guess what? When you have a Reaper responding faster, being built faster, it's usually a bit better for you. Now, the 3rd rack's going back at home could add that 3rd Reaper. The numbers tip in Clem's scale, but the reinforcement time doesn't.
Yeah, this is naturally just a build order. Well, I'd say a build order win here from uThermal, but then the 3rd racks from Clem maybe means he can out-Reaper his opponent. Like, if it really sells this idea of it just being a Reaper back at home, then Clem should be able to maybe come in with like 3 Reapers all at once, or maybe 4 Reapers. When uThermal typically only goes to like 2 or 3 Reapers in total off this 2 racks, well, usually 3 Reapers, right? And maybe then you can just get damage done when you catch uThermal building up those add-ons that usually come into play. So maybe some expectation there.
Well, a lot of it can come down to micro, so let's just see if anything unfolds in terms of the grenades being thrown down. I mean, same server, we're going to see the height of their micro. uThermal's SCV actually does eventually scout what's going on. Seems so unlikely, and it apparently can happen. Sees the Reapers, the 2 racks, puts everything together, puts 2 and 2, or 2 and 1 together, and sends his Reapers back home. He was planning on perhaps expanding, but that SCV now building a bunker. 3rd racks also comes down for uThermal, and this is going to get a little bit weird. Who has the better micro is the real question right now. But with the advantage on the high ground, you would consider it's uThermal. He just has the better start here.
Yeah. Do you even need the better micro when you're going to be that far ahead? Well, Clem gets up to the high ground, but the thing is as well, uThermal just straight up as he takes a little bit of a bounce, but it actually works out for him. The thing is as well, though, uThermal's just going to have so many more workers here. As he gets one of the SCVs, he'll get another. He can afford to lose like 5, 6, 7, 8 workers, and he'd still be ahead. So how is Clem going to find that much damage? uThermal already expanding. Clem's only just now building his orbital. 3 racks is so all in. It's so difficult to pull away and just get out of here. You know, if this was like a proxy 2 racks alone, it would have been bad for Clem. And now it's proxy 2 racks with 1 racks extra at home. It's even worse as uThermal comes out, tries to intercept the next Reaper. gets back to the high ground, puts a Reaper in that bunker, and will be able to hold the ramp as well. And it looks like, unless Clem breaks through very soon here, that uThermal's having a pretty good time, because now uThermal actually got his own third racks up, and now he's building Reapers. All of this off the huge worker lead.
Yeah. It's going to have to be one of those weird scenarios where maybe uThermal stops building Reapers, and that's when Clem goes, aha, I have more Reapers. But for uThermal's side, why would you ever stop building Reapers? Especially if you can afford it. And that should always put him in the lead. Even if he takes a bad fight initially, hopefully his reinforcements, his SCV pool can help out. The fight actually finally happens as Clem decides to dive for it, but it is quickly at his own loss. I'm a little surprised he didn't tap out then and there. I mean,
yeah, me too.
In the SCVs, really. So still an 11 worker difference.
That felt like the dive into the main base, which was like, well, it's now or never. And then it was like, well, I guess it's going to be never. Then he's like, but maybe if I stay in just that little bit longer, I'll find another opportunity. No, I don't think so. It's this is tough for Clem, because obviously now he loses all those Reapers. And like you said before, uThermal can just keep building Reapers. Clem's going to try and build a Hellion, and maybe just because he saw that there was no factory from uThermal, maybe he feels like there's an opportunity there. But again, uThermal's up a base, right? Like, you can maybe outnumber here from Clem, but uThermal can pull SCVs, and even if he loses 10 workers, he's still ahead because he's a base ahead. So it's so tough. uThermal's going to see Reapers are still building too, so a good rescout to the left-hand side gives him a good idea that this is going to be more aggression, so he will start a bunker at the front and just really make sure he's not going to get himself into a bad position after really defending well off a good build order advantage in the early stages.
Okay, well, there's always the chance he gets behind and kills a couple SCVs. With like 6 Reapers, it's very easy to get SCV kills. But the Reapers of uThermal, they're still not being made, man. He's just actually producing them, similar to Clem. Never getting caught in that potential trap, I guess. Like, to be honest, though, if he was going to swap over to Marines, and if they're going to have a bunker, if they're going to have the high ground, they're also not bad. But it's definitely easier when you just have more of the same thing. So Medevac's going to come in now for Clem, and that's so funny to see. Just going for the one base, follow up all in. uThermal has had so long to reap the rewards of his worker lead. He has not yet reaped the rewards of technology. So that's the only thing. But are we going to add like a Medevac? Is Medevac really going to change things here? I don't know about that.
Yeah. This it's just what do you do, right? I mean, uThermal's in a defensive position. Maybe the Hellions can drop by and cause some chaos. But these Reapers can move around so quickly that they can respond pretty well. He's got Hellions of his own, and the bunker at the front obviously really just stops these Reapers from being much of a thing, kind of pushing on the natural. Clem's going to try and drop into the main base, which is exactly where uThermal is sat with all his Reapers. He'll pull back to get his own Hellions into the fight. And obviously this kind of weird grenade battle ensues, but I wish I could be more hyped for Clem. I just really don't see any way that this game goes his way, though.
I mean, he does take the armor supply lead, man. Like, never underestimate how weird... Tank. Oh, there's a siege tank. Okay, that's probably going to be it. He's going to try and dive on top of it. He does nab it, but at the cost of so many shots of his Reapers on top of uThermal. So uThermal absolutely takes the lead. GG. That tank did the tank thing. He just tanked all the shots.
Tank took its name literally.
He did. It's still important to have there. GG. I mean, you try a cheese, and it turns out uThermal is doing kind of like, a build order counter, really. I mean... That plus getting the scout, that is the most counter you can have against the build.
Yeah. It was the hardest of counters, really. And, even if it was, like I say, even if it was like proxy 2 racks versus base 2 racks without a third racks at home, it's still bad for Clem. But then it's like a more all-in version. As all-in as it... the most all-in it gets is all 3 racks are proxied, right? But it may as well be that. It's just a mind game not having the third racks proxied. And yes, if that doesn't do any damage and he thermals up that many workers, an orbital never built from Clem for so long in the game, that's how it's going to go. And that's exactly what we saw. And now uThermal takes the 1-0 lead here in this TVT. I think a lot of people coming into this as well, by the way, really look at this and say, well, Clem, he's on fire. Clem's a player to watch out for. He's definitely the one that a lot of people are talking about. But uThermal really has brought it to Clem in a lot of their matches lately. Clem's won the last 3 in a row, but uThermal picked up a map here and there. uThermal beat Clem in the TSL European Qualifier, which is actually, I believe, the qualifying match to get into the TSL 5. So that was one of uThermal's victories against Clem, and he has had a few of those victories scattered in here and there throughout 2020 already. So uThermal definitely shown he can fight Clem. And this isn't, a matchup where I think I said this last week as well, where if there's a matchup where Clem doesn't excel as much as he doesn't, it's TVT, right? Whereas in TVZ and TVP, it's like, I think Clem wins all the time. In TVT, he definitely struggles against Hero Marine. He definitely feels like he struggles against uThermal and Soul. So it feels like a tougher matchup for him to make work.
Well, it very possibly is, but it's not really, that first game is not really the proper measuring stick for the rest of the series. So I'm sure it's very possible we have other 2 Raxes in play, but it's probably not the same exact scenario that happens there. So let's see more of a macro game, and we really get to test who has the better TVT. In the bottom right, down 1. After that cheese, he is Team Liquid's Clem.
And in the top left-hand side, our blue Terran player is Team Liquid's uThermal.
So no proxies this time. As I said, maybe in the future, something else a little bit, especially if uThermal were to take a 2-0 lead, he could absolutely go for his own Reapers. We thought of uThermal as the Reaper King for quite some time, right behind Yun, basically, when they were the biggest, most powerful thing to do. But that was just more of a build order thing there. It was just having defender's advantage and a great scouting. And let's just go ahead and wipe that game from her brain, as Clem has to do. Tried to hold the, tried to really, I guess, take the momentum, take the reins of a best of 5, which can be nice, but not working out. Great news is, for anyone who's cheering for these guys who still wants Team Liquid representation, is that this is, once again, the winner's bracket. So we've kind of moved back and forth, right? Well, the winner of this is going to face Trap in round 4. So that's, I think they'll have to worry about that one later, right? TVP against Trap. Oh, that's difficult to do.
The loser of this has to play against Reynor, who is also a tough match. So,
you know what though? I think that's preferable. Trap has amazing EVT. Maybe not absolutely perfect, right? But I don't know, man. I don't know. Not that facing Reynor is any easier, but it happens a lot more often. So I think it's also a comfortable type of thing. But anyways, as I said, that's for later, but it is a good sizing up of what they're really fighting for. Obviously, the further you go, the better it is no matter what. But sometimes you look at the lower bracket and maybe in a weird way, that is one of the, I still definitely can get through there more so than I can get through on the top side. But I think we said similar things maybe for uThermal Zest, and actually uThermal totally bopped Zest. It wasn't just a win, it was a bopping, so don't want to predict that too soon. We do have just command centers being built, factories being built. Slightly faster factory, though, for our boy uThermal, who's also swapping over into Hellions.
Yep. 2 Hellions already building up and on the way for uThermal, so he's reactoring those. Clem's reactor a little bit later. He just goes into 1 Hellion, likely to just be reacted Marines, because the factory's not near that reactor. Swap over. And we're just going to be seeing now the old command coming up on either side for the natural expansion, because they both ended up expanding pretty early on here in this game.
We do see I was just going to talk about this. We do see a couple of new builds being brought out, right? We have a Marauder slow build of Hellions that does exist, and I would have expected the slow to start as soon as he had 50 gas. I don't know if that's a mistake or a change up of the build. Thing is about the Marauders that it's not too typical they get something too slow. It's more their just availability, but it is something that can be powerful. If they're depending on a Cyclone that gets tagged by 2 Marauders dropping out for a medevac, that could be problematic. So finally we do have that start, and this is what I was hoping to see at least once in this game. I kind of expected it from Clem, but apparently all the European Terrans are using this one. It is going to be difficult to hold, and even if it's held, it has a lot of micro potential, right? Trying to go between the bases with that medevac. So here it comes now. Clem does not know about it.
Yeah, Clem's got a really nice concave of Marines, which is the one good thing, but Marines are the one thing you don't really want here because of how many Hellions there are. So this is one of those scenarios where the Marauders are not so going to do so much of their own kind of thing here. Clem sees it now. Like I say, he's already in a pretty good concave, but does he really want to fight? Kind of not. He's going to have a Raven to drop the auto turret as well. He even pulls some SCVs right away. Now these Marauders start to pick off the auto turret, so that goes down pretty quick. And now there's a Cyclone. The Marauders, if they can get on the Cyclone, would be great. He saves the medevac for the moment. He gets the Cyclone, but it gets high ground. Now the SCVs will start to go down because all the Marines are dead, and it's just the Cyclone which gets up the ramp and stays safe, but the SCVs and the Natural will still be in some trouble. As uThermal, turns back around to that natural expansion. There is a lot of SCVs still there, as now the Cyclone goes down as well, and Clem is in a lot of trouble. His army supply is down under half of what uThermal has, and uThermal's still just sat here. Still the 2 Marauders alive, and the Liberator's going to show up into the main base. Oh, the only real thing he has to deal with that is one auto turret on one of these Ravens.
Yeah, that's that Raven can sometimes help, but it's also so easily dodgeable, right? Like in that situation, he could have just run away from the auto turret. He had to tackle it with the Marauders. Either way, it was still good for uThermal. Clem, probably too bold to try and handle it on the low ground. He didn't really have a choice. He was so surprised by it. There was no attempt to move into the main base. The tank will hold against the groundness, but the Liberator's another problem that the Cyclone usually would take care of if it hadn't died to the Marauders slow. The SCV stacking up an awful lot when there's still 5 Hellions, 6 Hellions left over. Now we're down to 3, but that still would one-shot them. It's getting awfully close. They'll leave these low, and there's the tap out. uThermal with the 2-0 responds to a cheese, does something very aggressive in the second game, and is rewarded. Clem, I mean, maybe just getting beat by the guy who has so much experience in tournaments. It's not looking good for him. I mean, the last series did start the same way, though. And then we had the pretty epic reverse sweep, right? And some pretty epic games beyond that. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen here, as we know that Clem can absolutely bring in his own TVT here. And I still want to see that macro game between the two.
Yep, this third game would be great to see a bit of a macro game. Could get interesting too, because I know both Clem and uThermal have played their fair amount of mech in TVT lately. So maybe you get mech versus mech, or mech versus even mech versus Marine tank can play very interestingly as well. So we'll see what happens as we get into our third map here. It's going to be Everdream, which really feels like a map you can absolutely play mech on, right? You can take that forward 4th base and make that work out. So definitely some possibilities as we get into this next map in just a few moments. Zombie Grub, do you think Clem's got it in him to pull it back?
I would have totally expected him to take at least one series, but uThermal were like being good on the defensive, being good on the offensive. It's starting to make me question a little bit. Maybe he's just excellent best of 5 planner, making an otherwise very difficult bracket run look easy if you were to win here in game number 3. I would have expected the Marauder Hellion thing on this map, actually, with the amount of space in the main. You can actually, again, as I was saying, right, like, can actually not just win. It can just go for some damage, then try and harass in the main base. Not that that was needed last game, but nope. You saw it last game. I doubt we'll see it again. Even if Clem were to be like, oh, I want to show you how it's really done. I don't think it's really something you want to do. Down 0-2 to this guy in the top right is the blue Terran Liquid uThermal.
On the bottom left-hand side, comeback time. If he's going to show us what he's made of, it's better now than at any other point. It's Clem.
You know, it's pretty good now. Not like when you're tapping GG. I'm going to really hit those GG keys pretty well, though, right? No, that's not when you want to start performing well. How do you take the lead, though? Factory expand, maybe? Yep. He's going to go for the second gas alongside uThermal. I'm just thinking factory expand in terms of trying to control the flow a little bit more, but definitely not dedicate to it. The uThermal, I mean, factory expand's so nice because even if you don't necessarily get aggressive with it or get any gains from it, it's still such a macroable position, but it also does give you the confidence, either defensive or offensive. The only time I ever say that we reliably saw factory expand to 1-Rex expand actually start to fall behind and stay behind was in, funnily enough, the Innovation Cure series, where no one seemed to be able to get any victories back, no comebacks, right? But otherwise, it's, I think, the preferable build, certainly down 0-2. But they both are doing the same thing. uThermal's actually no bother scouting with the factory expand, which people could certainly argue it's not necessary.
You can definitely take that little risk, right, of just going 1 gas expand again. or something along those lines. So it's definitely a possibility. But we'll just factor expand. So they're both going to match each other here on Everdream. One where, a lot of different things can happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, the SCV is actually going to stay in kind of a neat little spot there. I don't think it's going to be used unless he has all of his miners still in gas. But it could just be for a follow-up scout, which is still really nice, right? Like the old probe scouting into the main base when a Terran doesn't realize it. The SCV can do the same thing, yeah? Command center does go down and is an actual factory expand. No sneaky, super close starport. Even if there was, I wouldn't expect that on the left side. I expect that on the right side of Clem's base. As Clem grabs, of course, his in base. They both are doing similar openers. Reactor for both. No second Hellion, though, for uThermal, so maybe a tech lab there. Pretty close games. Oh, Widowmine, actually.
Widowmine's a fun change-up. I actually really like the Widowmine 6 Marine drop. It's a bit different, while also it works better than you think it does, because the Widowmine gives you so much zoning initially. You can really let the Marines get into good positions and they can really make a good effort from there. So I like it if that's going to be the plan. And for the moment, seems like it may be. Tech lab on the factory behind this. And let's see if it is indeed a medevac on the way. You can also just use this Widowmine without a medevac, right? Leave it at the front and it just zones a little bit. Yeah, it will be a Widowmine.
Mm-hmm. You're right, though. It could have just been like the zoning Widowmine, which has actually saved a couple Terrans I've seen against early aggression. Obviously, if it pops off in a Cyclone, that's really it for the Cyclone's life. So not going to find much aggression there. But doing a drop, taking control of this game, both of them have similar ideas, just slightly similar production from the factory. Clem going into a tank now is also grabbing a medevac, and things get kind of weird if they both immediately drop, which is exactly what they do. You see the pickup on both sides. And if they don't see each other, and we're going to have a bit of a base race, like not actually base for base or anything like that, but who kills most SCVs?
Yeah,
exactly.
Becomes really tough. It's kind of, I think, rough for uThermal, because if that tank gets sieged, that's the big thing. If the tank can get sieged up, it can do so much that uThermal can't really work against, but it's also a more laid-back approach from Clem, where he'll just settle for a depot initially. Whereas uThermal will go straight into a mineral line, dropping straight into this here. Widowmine will start to burrow up. There's no target fire on that Widowmine, and it will just get through and burrows and relocates a little bit so he can re-burrow away. Doesn't go off on the SCVs that are on top of his units. So this is nice. Nelly ended up putting that Widowmine onto the onto the Marines there, but Clem got them away. So uThermal's already killed 10 SCVs, and meanwhile Clem's forced a Rax to lift off. So there's not really comparable damage just yet. But Clem's attack is still alive and kicking.
Yeah, the SCVs are going to be pulled into this to make sure that it's okay, or is it? There we go. I guess he's waiting for the auto turret, which the auto turret does soak up a lot of the fire. However, the tank still providing a lot of weight to this push, anchoring it in really a way that uThermal's push would never be able to do. The high ground temporarily, his tank was low, so his tank does hold, but against the Reaper Micro, Clem is going to try and make wonders happen here, and he takes out the tank before the repair, and he actually causes uThermal to tap out. I did not see that happening, man. I was like, oh, it's going to be okay, right?
I think the fight was a bit messy from uThermal. He really lost the Cyclone very quickly without really getting a good lock on, which was a bit of a shame. And then when he lost the Cyclone, he loses a lot of the power that maybe would have helped clean up the tank, and just took that little bit too long to really clean it up. I almost wondered, did he have to commit just then? Could he not have waited perhaps for his Raven to get a Matrix? I know this army sieged up at the front, but he's already had to lift up the racks. And yeah, he's lost one depot and he's maybe going to lose another. But what if you just wait till the Matrix is ready? And then once that Matrix is ready, you could then jump on it. Because then the tank gets taken down. The tank's really what shut down this entire attempted defense from uThermal more than anything. So, I don't know, maybe a different way to approach that if you get the chance again. But for now, Clem is able to put a map on the scoreboard, and he's going to give us a series here.
Yeah. I think it might have been a bit of overconfidence, saying like, it's just a few units, which SCV pools can be good against. But it was still just too few army units. The kill power wasn't really there. The soaking power was with the extra SCVs, but just not the kill power. The outsert wasn't as effective as he was hoping, and he didn't have a whole lot of reinforcements because his Marines weren't producing. He had to lift the barracks. So I could see if he thought he could clean that up, and then suddenly it just very quickly snowballs, especially losing that tank when you wouldn't expect it to the leftover, early game units. But that was Clem's pretty good control. Power of Reapers and Medivacs, which he tried to use in the first game, but was a lot more effective in the last one. And we're on to game 4 on Zen.
Yeah, we're going to be...
Reapers?
Yeah, you think some Reapers?
No, I don't actually.
No? Yeah. I actually wouldn't be surprised if uThermal sent some SCVs across the map, but I also wouldn't be too surprised if he just says, okay, let's build up a little bit again, maybe some more aggression. We haven't really seen much of the, the 1-1-1 aggression just yet, which I know uThermal likes to do without an expansion, so let's see what it brings us as uThermal is our blue Terran, the top right.
In the bottom left, there's the red Terran. He is Liquid's Clem. And what a weird game that happens all too frequently, really, in TVT. When you both make a medevac, which is not too common, but when you both do, it so often ends with just severe SCV losses being usually the determining factor. Not usually the game end, but in that case it was. uThermal, I don't know. It seems like a game you might chuckle at, be like, okay, all right. Like, I respect, that was good micro and all that, but I'm still up 2-1, right? But I would love if this was just the tail end of the day and it was all just reverse sweeps. That would also be pretty cool.
Yeah, because we actually went, the first 4 matches of the day kind of flew by with no game 5s, and now, getting all the game 5s, and reverse sweep number 1. Already happened. Maybe another one on the way.
At least a game 5. Maybe uThermal actually does end up taking it, but at least a game 5. All right, so we got factory expands once again for both players, both taking the gases, and questions of what they decide to make from the actual production they both have. More what we're waiting to see. uThermal's SCV scout not ending up helping him last game. Not going to bother doing it this game. Maybe just triple Reaper 2 Hellion again. All the gas is still intact for uThermal, as our observer shows us, so it might just go up to that starport very quickly. It happens occasionally. It's far more common for a factory expand, but the full 1-1-1 can happen. There it is. Super sneaky.
SCV to the side. There's the starport. Yeah, if there was someone expecting it to do this, it was definitely uThermal. There's a double gas expansion from Clem. This doesn't mean that uThermal can't deal damage here. But Clem gets in to maybe see the lack of a CC on the low ground.
Well, if it's the same exact build, you should be doing the exact same thing. And no one really wants to build a command center on the high ground, so this should be raising the red flags, even if you can't get full information. The starport really does hurt, though. Whether it provides a medevac for consistent healing with the Reapers coming out double, it might just be that. Or the Liberator, which can also just provide the 2-part aggression, right? Like, actually, 1 base to 1 base. You don't have too many units. Even as you have that factory ready to go, it can be difficult to do. And especially if your opponent doesn't get a Cyclone. I actually would have thought that Clem would have gone for a Cyclone, being a little bit in the dark, being a little bit cautious, but right into the tank.
I think if you can get the tank up on this map, especially just tank the high ground, like on the ramp or so, and it really just means you should be able to defend a Viking as well to deal with the lib. I feel like this is exactly what Clem wants because he kind of knows what's coming. Tank to deal with the ground army, Viking to deal with the Liberator, sorry. I feel like he kind of just knows, from seeing the CC not being down when his own CC had started. He's like, well, if you're not expanded by now, you're probably already on your way to the starport.
Yeah.
And I've seen you do this before, kind of thing. So, seeing tank on the high ground, units all with it. Yeah, there's 4 SCVs exposed on the natural, so you can lose those and be kind of fine if you kill everything. So
that's a lot of units to help out, but that is a nice position. He does follow up with the Cyclone, and it is pretty important. He went for a Viking instead of a Raven. Had he added a tech lab, not an anti-air, would have been really difficult to handle. The Viking on the wrong side of the battle to start things off with. The Cyclone's about to pop for the main base, though. Low ground is fine, protected by that tank. It's the Liberator trying to do some real damage, but a Cyclone pops out even though it wasn't made first in time to save most of the SCVs. uThermal is expanding, so he'd be happy to get just a few more SCVs, really. Looks like he's not going to get too many more. He's down by 2 still. He's going to go to the main base. Tricky, tricky. A Cyclone's not going to take care of those Reapers too fast. So they should be getting a couple more SCV kills.
Which is only really what uThermal needs, right? If he gets a few more worker kills here, like 2 or 3, it's evened out. He's actually going to get a little more than that. Well, he gets 3. Nice pull away of the SCVs to the tank, but it's also lost mining time, right? And then the Reapers get out alive, 3 of them. And that means you can still come in and 2-shot SCVs, so they're going to remain a threat in this game. It gives uThermal still some map control. And it really felt like Clem was set up kind of right to deal with this, but then unit positioning was definitely a thing, as this Hellier just doesn't get that 1 kill he could have had.
Yeah, that was a lot of unit positioning working out well there. Distracting the Cyclone to get the Reapers in the main base, and still having them could certainly get a couple more SCV kills. That was what uThermal wanted. Still a bit behind, but moving on to the mid-game, that is TVT. Actually might have a tank push with the minerals being mined out here. But yeah, mid-game, it's about the execution of the tank Raven push versus the tank Raven defense that Clem is setting up. Can he actually hold and not take any like half damage? You know, half the mineral line being sieged up on is still a lot of lost mining. That's what I'm expecting uThermal to do anyways. Don't usually mine out the minerals in the middle unless you're planning to do that push. Exactly what we saw in the earlier TVT.
Yeah, absolutely. And should be moving across the map soon-ish if that's his plan. Obviously, maybe wants to wait for the Ravens to build up a little bit. Obviously, his third one's about to pop, so I'd imagine the third Raven, then you just go. And of course, typically you'd build up a bit behind that. There's the third CC. Actually going to set the starport over to the reactor so you can get a couple of Vikings, which can rally across the map behind this as well. If he does indeed start to move across. Clem's already building Vikings here, so into Vikings is already going to go into Stimpack upgrade. So he'll be a bit faster on that, if only by a little bit. uThermal's push, definitely a big one. You want to be very careful, because even if you just get contained here a little bit, or you lose your first tank because it's too far forward and uThermal's able to jump on it, that can already be really pushing this heavily into uThermal's favor.
That's exactly right. Contain would still be pretty darn good. The Marine sees a triple Raven and knows that is a serious threat right there. Scan ahead to see if he can actually move in. Clem's going to reposition, try and take a bit forward position, get on top of the Ravens before they can just do whatever they want. With his Viking control, that is going to work out just fine. uThermal, though, Contain, still okay if he wants to go for that. He spreads out his units, then actually goes for a lot of harassment. That seems awfully bold. He has nothing to protect his Ravens should he do that. And he's just repositioning them. Scans going down every which way. Jeez. Multiple scans from both players. To get an idea of what the follow-up is, it is bio for both, it is 3CC for both, and Clem even thinks he can go ahead and take this on. The Ravens of uThermal a little off to the side, maybe 2 off to the side, come in now for the auto turrets. A lot of auto turrets.
But is he going to get them down? Oh, he misses so many of the auto turrets that he maybe should have had, but maybe it doesn't matter. His tank's still alive, a few Marines left over. He still has a Raven up in the sky, gets shot down by the Cyclone. uThermal gets the better end of this and to the end, I think. But still, Clem, Raven's alive, that's big. uThermal try and chase them down, but then he gets into a Viking fight, which he takes a slightly worse trade on. Initially, it's very close, though, and an extra Viking shows up for uThermal. It is going to be the Raven still from Clem that can really make a difference. Man, if uThermal got like 2 more auto turrets off on the Raven that was full of energy when it died, he maybe just sweeps through here and wins. I mean, as it stands, up in workers, up in army. And uThermal looking good with these tanks, still sieged out to the left side in front of Clem's natural, stopping him from getting that third position, which uThermal's already been able to take.
Yeah, this is getting really worse and worse for Clem. He was supposed to be able to break out of that to the point where uThermal is going to pack it up and go home, maybe even initiate a bit of a pseudo counter himself. Nope, instead he is still contained and falling more and more behind. Now, if he gets a decent drop in the next 2 minutes, then there could be a possible comeback here, but the longer this goes on, the more he just tries to bust out of this by building tanks and Vikings. The longer uThermal gets his economic advantage, and that's just so much more production, so many more upgrades. If that is to continue on. Clem could mine out the middle, which is exactly what he's doing. He's mined out just enough to get through it. uThermal's Marine, though, really nicely. He's timed to see that. He's going to make him reposition a little bit. This one tank actually getting a couple of nice shots on top of the Marines already, and 5 tanks to the left. Yeah. Obliterate that Cyclone and control Clem's natural.
uThermal going to bring these extra tanks forward now and go toward the natural expansion, so he's going to keep pushing through. He takes a lot of damage on those tanks, though. Tries to run away, loses one more. The SCVs start to pull. I mean, at this point, uThermal probably realizes there's something up. Bit of a counterattack, maybe. Can he really hold this off? Because there is going to be the Ravens. The Ravens are very scary. As on the other side of the map, uThermal is landing his Vikings. For a moment he wanted to run into this. He forces the auto turrets already. And that's obviously big because it means there's less breaking potential here from Clem, who's down 40 supply in this game, pulling SCVs into that tank fire on his own natural. He's going to lose so many workers. Yes, he may very well clean up, but another 20 workers down, and now uThermal pulls his own workers, saying, well, if you're losing that many, I can lose a few as well. And that's going to be it for uThermal to continue his run in the TSL winners bracket. Clem, you know what, maybe it was...
We stand as one.